Like was introduced, my name's Matt. Actually, I think on your program might have been Danny Erickson, but we had a little vote on the best looking and everything, and I lost. So here I am. No. Did everybody get one of these cards right here? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass out some information as we go, and I'm just going to do some drawings. I know that listening to me just without some kind of reward is going to be tough for some of you. So I'm from Wise Foods, and a little background on us. We actually got into the business almost 3 years ago. Our founders were just looking for new ways to do food storage. So if you fill those out, and if you can bring them up, we'll start calling some winners. I may pass out some of these outdoor meals and some of these emergency lines, and then I think at the end we'll give away this bucket. So if anybody did not get one and wants one, just raise your hand, and Danny can get it to you. So we're not going to take an hour like scheduled. I don't think I can. Think I have the endurance, nor do you. So, we still have some more to pass. Yeah, and if you can write on there you want more information, or you don't. You don't want to be contacted. Whatever you'd like. All we need is your name, I think. So by a show of hands, how many of you have heard of Wise Foods? Okay. So I'm going to start off with the basics where we like to start. Why food storage? There's a million reasons why food storage. I think, thanks, Danny. I think some of them right here, in fact, 10% unemployment rate, spike in food prices. That's some of the worries we have. We're worried about food storage supplies stopping, any pandemics, which we've kind of seen once or twice. These are even some that, some of the bigger ones that people need to, or think about, at least worry about. I think we've seen, as far as a company, a larger motivation to get food storage. When we first started too, we thought we would be doing most of our business in Utah, and 70% of our business is actually done outside of Utah. So some of those things we talked about with some of those possible, let me go back one. Some of these different catastrophes that can happen. Is that it, Denny? Okay. All right. Take your time. Some of these items you can tell is going to take a little different preparation. So I think, first of all, maybe our little disclaimer is there's really no one way, and I don't think you should choose just one way to prepare for a catastrophe. I think picking a bunch of different alternatives is the great way to go. So some of those things that have happened in the past that have made food storage maybe top of our list. Earthquake, hurricane, the flood at Hurricane Katrina caused. So we needed to come up with ways to store food. There's the traditional ways, which I actually got into 14 years ago, and my main motivation 14 years ago was my wife made me do it. So, and that was it. And we had that, we had wheat and beans, and we still do, and we have all these supplies that we never did one thing with. In fact, I think a lot of times most of us talking to people, they have that stuff and have no idea what to do with it. Anybody like that here? I'm sure nobody here is, but we had one that was brave enough to admit that. I remember as a kid thinking that we would just bust open these wheat bins and just eat it. So anyway, traditional food storage is a great way to go. I would never direct you away from that. I think you should have those things, those staples. One thing that I had noticed is it causes, it can be expensive because we don't rotate it. Everybody see this picture okay? I wish it came out a little better. This gentleman here is one of our customers who took this picture back in 1973, and that's him with his family. That was a year's supply of food in 1973. So most of us, I think, here would have a hard time rotating that amount of food and maybe even storing it and keeping it cold. But I got to admit, this would be the way I would want to do it. This would be my number one way if I could actually pull that off. So, and not have too much waste. So that's not very practical, I know, but so since then, and even back then, they were toying with new ideas and new ways to store food, and I'm going to talk about two of them today. There's many more though, but freeze-dried and dehydrated are two of your main ways to do it. Now, how many of you hear that freeze-dry is better or dehydrated is better? Or okay, freeze-dry, yep. From our point of view, we think that both have their place and both have their advantages. I would, like I said, I think they both have their place. So if some of you that don't know, freeze-dried process is where they'll take an ingredient or a whole meal and they will cook it, and then they will flash freeze it at negative 40 degrees, and then they'll bring the temperature up slowly, and as they're sucking out any moisture that's left. Dehydrated process is similar. It's where they take out the moisture. You can either cook it before. Most of the time it's pre-cooked. Everything we use that's dehydrated in our meals are pre-cooked, and that's only to reconstitute faster, and I'll go into more detail there. But for 1 second, let me just, let's give something away. I've got to mix these up. Let's give away a outdoor cheesy lasagna. I don't know if, Danny, you want to read one of these names or just not look and...
Rogers, Charles Rogers.
Okay, give that to Charles. Let me have those. Charles, good news. You won a $6 entree there, but I guess it might have taken you away from the bigger prize. So, good and bad. Sorry about that. So anyway, about the freeze-dried and the dehydrated process, that's, you know, I guess on a personal note, I'm grateful that we have it. It's actually opened up doors for many opportunities for us to store food, so we don't have to be like that gentleman I just showed you. Now, packaging is also another great way. How many of you have number 10 cans at home? I know I do. I think they're great. I think they're, you know, that was a great thing to have as part of our storage, and you know, we would never recommend that you not have a number 10 can because there's definitely reasons to have them. What we've done is a little different. Most of the complaints that we've heard from our customers is that a number 10 can is difficult for most families, and especially if you're just a couple, or to open a can of different products and use it all before it goes bad. So I don't know if anybody's gone through that. I've actually talked to people where they've gone 30 years, and and let their product expire because they were too afraid to open it and use some of it and waste part of it. So kind of a weird, but that happens. So what we do is we take these are flexible metal cans. That's the best way to describe them. And we nitrogen flush them. We take the dehydrated process that I was telling you about. Some of the items in there are pre-cooked and dehydrated. Some of the items are freeze-dried. And then we blend them together into meals. So this pouch here is a 4-serving pouch. And all of our emergency line is 4-serving pouches that are then placed in a bucket. Now, any questions on that packaging? I wasn't going to open it up to questions too much because it's in this forum, but okay, so that saves us from this, which is, I got to tell you, still my favorite picture. I can sit here and look at this thing forever, but because of this process, we're able to turn what I just showed you into spaces that are much smaller. That there is 36 buckets, and that's 4,325 servings of food, meals. The other interesting point about that picture I just showed you is that you can take all of those 4,325 servings of meals, and you can actually, it actually weighs around 60 pounds. So it makes it much easier. My little girl, she likes to show how strong she is by carrying these buckets. I know I like it. I still grind wheat. Like I told you, I was forced into buying traditional food storage 14 years ago, which I'm happy I was. And but my biggest complaint is moving and just rotating it. Okay, how is it time to give away something else here? Let's do the 4-serving stroganoff, it looks like. You better mix it up really good. How many wish that Danny was the one up here instead of me?
Connor Hazen.
All right. I actually saw a bunch of Connors in there. I think he might have, he did, didn't he? Am I right? Okay. Okay. Well, so Connor, you'll love that. You know, kids love the meals, so. All right, so back to these packages. The nice thing about being able to do these things and the technology and food storage is we've actually been able to get the price to an affordable price. I know with my kids' school lunch, I complain about spending the money there. But I guess what I'm trying to say is these meals, they can, per serving, we've gotten them down to as low as $1.30 a serving. $1.60 is your average cost per serving. Are these new, Danny, or they already win? Okay. Here's some other options. Now, we don't do any of these, but I just wanted to show you the MRE. How many of you have had MREs? Okay, me too. I think they are great. I think they have a place for them. Now, I never get the same answer when I ask military people or people that have eaten MREs whether they love them or they could do without them. And I don't know. I think it just, like any other food, it depends. One, I guess there's some advantages and disadvantages to the MRE type. You know, you're not going to get as long a shelf life out of an MRE as some of these other things, mainly because the moisture's still in them. So I mentioned earlier, too, these are the different menu items, and I'll just quickly go through. Any of this information that you feel like you want to get some more on, we're just, obviously, our booth's here, and we have samples there. But these right now, if you notice, when you're looking for a meal, I would suggest you look for items that are quick cook. And what I mean by that is I've actually seen some of these pouches, and then I've turned them over and looked at the directions, and it says take out a pouch, cook 20 minutes, place back in pouch, and then eat. So just something to think about. So what we do is we make all of ours quick cook. That means you can actually use cold water in an emergency. Hopefully you won't be stuck with just cold water, that you'll have a heat source. I really recommend a heat source no matter what, but if you are in that situation and you need to reconstitute these with cold water, you can. It'll just take longer. Do you have anything to say, Danny? How did I know you'd say that? Calorie content's important also. I listed all these calories here. We could actually make most of our servings even less expensive than they are now, which seems kind of hard to do. But we've decided to focus more on the calorie per serving than we have on the price per serving so much. So when you look at product, make sure that the calories are there. I actually had a person tell me once at a show similar to this that our calories were too high. So, but I think that's only happened once. And then the true test, are they going to eat it? A while back, my mother and father-in-law gave us an emergency kit that we put in our cars. And I was grateful. I think it was one of the greatest gifts they've given me. And anyway, one day my kids were, we lived in Eagle Mountain at the time, and they had a bad snowstorm, and my wife picked them up at 4 o'clock. Well, they didn't get home until the next morning. Well, they dove into that emergency kit, and they drank all the water that was there, and they tried to eat those candy, those bars, those calorie bars. How many of you have seen those? I know they were hungry because I don't think they can go more than an hour without food, to be honest with you. But they could not get that ingested. So there's a picture of a girl there, I think, mainly because your kids, they don't always associate, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat this bad tasting stuff. An adult, we can totally get past that, most of us. So definitely just, if you're going to prepare for that, maybe just have your kids try it, make sure they like it. I think that's about it. Any questions on shelf life, or go ahead. Okay. Thank you. She's asked, what is the shelf life of the packets? Those 4-serving Mylar pouches that I showed you, that are in our emergency line, they have a 25-year shelf life. Now, don't do what I did 14 years ago and hear the salesman say, you have a 30-year shelf life on this stuff, and then go store it in your shed. Don't do it. Everything that you buy that has a shelf life is always temperature, and I guess I'm the only one that's ever, did not know that. But so it's all temperature controlled. If you don't put it in your shed in Arizona, you're going to get 25 years. So these actually are designed for our outdoor use. You can actually dump water into the pouch. It has an oxygen absorber in it. The Mylar is actually a little bit different type of Mylar because you're dumping hot water in it. We don't want you to get burned. But for that reason, and we know that some people are going to buy these and put them on the dash of their car, we're only guaranteeing them for 7 years freshness. So, does that answer your question, I hope? Thanks. Let's go for the grand prize here. Unless there's any other questions, I'll try and answer them. Did someone say something? Okay. Yeah. Everybody except him, actually. No, I'm just kidding. Did I say 30 years? Oh, okay, the 25-year pouch. Okay, the 25-year pouch, there's a couple of reasons. Um, One, we are able to nitrogen flush those emergency pouches. These are not nitrogen flushed. That's one part of that scenario. Um, and there's actually quite a few that I probably don't want to go into. But the other one is that because we're able to place these in a bucket, and they're not going to be smashed or maybe you know, they're a little more rodent resistant. That is another reason for the. Go ahead. You know, it doesn't. It doesn't exactly mean that. Um, I think for us, we just feel more comfortable because it is attached to a bucket, and we know that it's not going to be sitting on the hood of a car or, you know. Um, I don't want to say that. That's going to be too much. But let's just say we're really conservative on our numbers, if that helps. Anything else?